Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into my next team preview video. Today we are doing the Buffalo Bills. We're almost to the end of the team preview series. I got two more teams after today, so let's just go ahead and get this underway. Most of you should already know how this works. In case we have any first-time listeners, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my thoughts on head coach Sean McDermott. I'm going to take a look at the team's remaining cap space, guys that are entering a contract year that have been on the team for the last couple seasons. And then I take a look at the offense, I take a look at the defense, give you my overall feelings on the team at the end of the episode. And then when I do go over that offense, I kind of give it a fantasy football perspective. I twist that in there just in case anybody wants to know where I stand on those guys as we head into the season. Let's just go ahead and get it going. Sean McDermott. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. He's continued to build this program underneath him and Brandon Beane's image, and I think they're set to have a huge year in what I believe it should be year 5 underneath Coach McDermott. Just a few years ago, he ended the Buffalo Bills playoff drought when he took the team to the playoffs with at that time Tyrod Taylor. Took a year, to have Josh Allen get adjusted. Year 2 with Josh, he got them back into the playoffs. They lost to the Texans. Then we saw what happened last year. Josh Allen took his next step in play, and the team not only made the playoffs, but they won the AFC East for the first time in forever. They went on a deep postseason run, and then they just fell short of the Chiefs last year. And so now they have just basically retooled the roster, brought back a lot of the guys, and brought in some pieces that should help them make that push again. And I don't see why not. I think this is definitely one of the upper echelon teams once again as we head into the season. Let's just go ahead and keep it moving. We're taking a look at the team's remaining cap space. They're sitting at around $7.1 million. So yeah, that's a little room to work with if they wanted to maybe make a trade, if they wanted to go acquire somebody as a free agent, or if they wanted to give somebody a bump in their pay this year, maybe give a contract extension. As far as contract extensions, we'll have to see. The one guy I kind of point to that I like on their team is Teron Johnson, who is their nickelback. I think I think he could be a top 10 nickelback. I think he finished the year very strong for the Bills and was one of the better players in the cornerback group. Which doesn't take that much to be the second best one there behind Tre'Davious White, but I thought he took the next step. That's one I could see them maybe working out a team-friendly deal between both sides if they wanted to keep him in their future plans. If not, I understand they may want to see another year of consistent play from Tehran, and maybe they can work out some type of contract at the end of the year. The other guys I don't see happening, like for example, Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, and Vernon Butler. I got them as projected starters on that defensive front, but all three of those guys are aging veterans, and basically their replacements are already on the roster. So they already have a lot of highly drafted picks into the defensive front. So those guys will be probably moving on to other teams after this season. And then Levi Wallace, we'll have to see how that works out for him. He's their starting cornerback, but other guys might already be pushing him for playing time this year. So that's something I don't see working out. So other than Teron Johnson, don't see really any contract extensions for coming up for any Bills, and then maybe they can use some of that cap space to go make any more additions to their roster. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, take a look at the offense. Now these are the projected starters. This is actually from me. I did write the Bills section. So let's just take a look at Josh Allen starting at the quarterback. Josh Allen, like I mentioned, he's coming off his best season as a pro. And let's just take a look at him since he's been in the league since 2018 among quarterbacks and the stats that he popped up on. Now, his season that he did have last year, it actually made him one of 8 quarterbacks in NFL history with a season of 4,500 plus passing yards, 30 plus touchdowns, and 10 or fewer interceptions. So he's one of 8 quarterbacks that have had a season that no other quarterbacks have had. So I expect him to continue his growth and be a dominant quarterback at this next level. He's one of the more fun quarterbacks to watch. And taking a look at some other stats that he popped up for me, he's got the 6th longest active streak right now of having at least one passing touchdown, 8 games in a row. And then among quarterbacks, he's got the 2nd most rushing yards. He's tied for the 2nd most game-winning drives. He's got the 3rd most rushing yards per attempt. I'm sorry, per game. And then he's tied for the third most comebacks. He's got the fifth most fantasy football points per game among quarterbacks. He's got the eighth most rushing touchdowns. That's among all running backs. He's got the eighth most touchdowns, and he actually has the most rushing touchdowns for the quarterback position. So he knows how to punch the ball in the end zone. We'll have to see. He got that big contract extension, so I'm kind of wondering if the team will hold back his rushing ability and only keep it for emergency situations when he needs to stretch out plays and maybe go take off for a first down. And then lastly, he's got the eighth most rushing yards per attempt. So that's what makes Josh a great fantasy quarterback, is his rushing floor. Again, I could see the team maybe wanting to hold him back and protect their asset now that he's got that contract extension and they have a lot of guaranteed money invested into him. But with that being said, I think it's a positive thing that he's coming off a year where he was able to showcase his arm and showcase his ability to carve up defenses with the addition of Stephon Diggs. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. They're going to be playing. Last year, they were the team that had the most 4 wide receiver sets. I don't expect that to change. He has plenty of weapons he can spread the ball to between Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis. They brought in Emmanuel Sanders. I like Dawson Knox at the tight end position. And they got some other guys like Isaiah McKenzie, maybe a Marquez Stevenson that they can work in that rotation as well. So I think his play is not only going to stay the same. I could see him even taking a little extra step in his play as far as a quarterback, increasing his completion percentage and whatnot. But yeah, as far as fantasy, he's a plug and play guy to me. He's a guy, if you draft, you can leave him in your roster and you don't have to think about replacing him until it's the bye week. So I'm expecting another strong season out of Josh, and for him to continue his growth and for him to help push this team to potentially getting to the Super Bowl this year. Now, taking a look at the running back position, obviously that's the Bills running backs in terms of fantasy have been one of the more annoying ones to own because Josh would always steal their touchdowns and they split the work kind of 50-50. But Devin Singletary to me is the better one to own. He's actually tied for the 7th most rushing yards per attempt since 2018. And the reason why I lean towards Devin would be the one to own is Zach Moss's durability has been a question mark for him as a player dating back to his days at Utah. He got hurt last year. It sounds like he just got hurt in camp recently, last week. I'm not sure how much time he's going to miss, but I do think the expectation is he's either going to be back this week or he'll be at least I think back by the regular season, if I remember that right. But that's why I lean towards Singletary over Moss. But I do like how both players kind of complement each other. I think they do make a nice little 1-2 punch whenever Zach Moss is healthy. And it's going to be like a 50-50 split load. It's a backfield in terms of fantasy. I'm not that excited to go own either one. But I have found myself taking a swing on Devin Singletary as a bench play, just in case, if Moss gets hurt or Moss has to miss any time, Singletary would dominate the touches. He's been effective with his touches. And I think, like I just mentioned, I think the team might want to rein back Josh's, rushing the ball as much as he has, and maybe risking his body for those shots. So I could see maybe Singletary finally getting those touchdowns this year. Again, either play whoever you want, whoever you like the most. I understand there are people out there that like Moss more than Singletary, which I get. My biggest concern is Moss's durability, so that's why I slightly lean towards Singletary. So I'm a Singletary guy. Either one, they're both are guys you can add on your bench. And then you just want to see if one of them maybe can lead in touches throughout the year and see if they're getting actually the goal line touchdowns that they haven't been because of Josh Allen that's taken away all those touchdowns over the last few years. But I'm going to go ahead and just keep this thing rolling too. Taking a look at their wide receiver position, obviously their wide receivers, as I mentioned, have a vital role in this offense because they run more 4 wide receiver sets than any other team in the NFL. And taking a look at the biggest addition was Stephon Diggs. You can make the argument, Stephon Diggs, played his vital part in helping Josh take the next step in his play. And I'll agree to an extent too. I do believe it is on Josh. I do believe he's worked on his mechanics, has became a better thrower of the football, and by increasing his completion percentage like he did last year. But a lot of that does play in a part that you have a guy like Diggs, who's he's a top 5 route runner in this league. He's got the explosive playmaking ability where he can take the top off of defense and make teams pay. And I think he's also, we've seen, I think it was like the Raiders game, right, where Josh like waited for him and he gave Stephon a shot down in the middle of the field, and Diggs went up and mossed the guy for the ball. So he'll go win contested balls. Diggs is arguably a top 5 wide receiver in this league with how good he is. Now, taking a look at Stephon Diggs since 2018, he's got the 5th most receiving yards. He's got the 5th most receptions. Among wide receivers, he's got the 7th most fantasy football points per game. He's tied for the 7th most receiving touchdowns, and he's got the 8th most receiving yards per game. So you know what you're going to get out of Stephon Diggs. He's going to dominate the targets out of this wide receiver group. Josh is going to look his way more times than not. Josh is going to give him a shot down the field, and that's why you can draft Stephon Diggs knowing that he's going to have a high floor, even though there may be other guys that are going to be getting their fair share of targets throughout the year. Now, Cole Beasley to me is a very good slot wide receiver, a very effective route runner. He's a trusty weapon for Josh to use in those short to intermediate routes. He gets his fair share of targets as well. He can be a PPR machine on any given week, but to me, he's more of a I'm not trying to draft Cole Beasley to be in my starting lineup, but he is more of a guy you can get on. You should be able to get on your bench, especially with all the, the negative publicity that surrounds him because of everybody knows why. He may draft in certain drafts because he may drop in certain drafts because of how certain people feel about him. But I find myself like if I can get him on my bench, he's a guy that you can slide in during bye weeks. He's a guy you can slide in during injury if anybody gets in your starting lineup gets injured. And he's a guy if you think the Bills are going to be like in a shootout with maybe I'm not sure if they play the Chiefs this year, but another high potent offense. He's a guy you can play because he's going to be involved in the passing attack as they battle it out with another great offense in the league. So that's how I view those two guys. I view those two guys as guys you can draft, Diggs and Beasley. Now, the other two guys you got to kind of figure out and see if they're worth a swing is Gabriel Davis. Gabriel Davis was a pleasant surprise last year. He caught a lot of touchdowns as a rookie and was a immediate contributor. He's going to have his role in the offense. He's definitely a guy I could see myself maybe taking a gamble on the bench, seeing if he can take his next step and play. But I do wonder if his production will be kind of like last year. Like, there'll be a game or so like where he kind of maybe gets 2 or 3 receptions, and then there was those games where he was getting those 5+ receptions, finding the end zone and getting the touchdown. So we'll have to see if he's able to get an extra target load or a consistent target load every week, but I still think he's going to be a consistent contributor to the Bills passing attack. And the one guy I'm really excited is Emmanuel Sanders. I've always just been a big Emmanuel Sanders fan. Dating back to his days at Pittsburgh and Denver. Now he's kind of bounced around between San Francisco and New Orleans, and now he's going to see if he can go get another Super Bowl ring here in Buffalo and be a contributor. He's going to probably fill that John Brown role. Now, I don't think we'll have to see. I'm not sure because Emmanuel's he's kind of been dealing with injuries too over these last few years. So I'm not sure if he's going to get the same amount of snaps that like John Brown has been getting for Buffalo over the last couple of years, but he can play that field stretcher role. He's a really good route runner, so he's going to be able to work the defense and get open. He's going to be able to utilize with a Diggs on the roster, with Beasley working the slot. He can probably utilize those guys and work himself open, and Josh can find him on deep shots too. So he might end up being a quality play, but the way I view it, it's like Stephon Diggs is a for sure thing. Beasley is a guy you can add on your bench that if you need to play him, to count on him being a PPR guy. And then you're either going to take a gamble on Gabriel Davis or Emmanuel Sanders and see if they emerge. And then if not, you can always move on from them as the season progresses. And then taking a look at their tight ends, they got Dawson Knox, who's a guy I've always liked. He just never really saw a consistent workload. He's not a guy you want on your fantasy team, but he's a guy that's going to be able to work his way in the passing attack. He can work off these good wide receivers that they have in Buffalo, and he can be a stretcher. He can definitely work the seam really well, and I like what he can bring to the passing attack. He definitely will have a role this season. I just don't think it's going to be a huge role where you want to maybe count on him on your fantasy football team. And then they brought in Jacob Hollister from the Seahawks, who was a contributor last year to the Seahawks passing attack. I think he'll work himself in the rotation, which again, I think that takes away from Knox, but I think he's going to provide some value, especially when they get closer to the red zone. They can start to maybe run even more double tight end sets too as well. But yeah, overall, I think those two guys will be the main guys working on in the tight end room. And then taking a look at their line, that's what really also helped out the Bills last year, in my opinion, was they invested into the offensive line, and that was able to give Josh more time to scan the field, and he wasn't immediately running for his life like he was in the first 2 seasons. Deion Dawkins and Darrell Williams are a very solid bookend tackle situation. They got Feliciano and Cody Ford working at the guard spot. Now, you do definitely want to see both those guys take their step up and play. They definitely have added some players through the draft and in free agency because they do want to create competition at the guard spot. And Mitch Morse is a pretty solid center as well too. And one thing that popped up last year, some of those guys did get banged up, so they had some guys in and out of the roster. So they spent like three draft picks this year on the offensive line. And one guy I really like is Spencer Brown. I don't know if he's going to get much playing time in his first year or two, but he's a guy that they have a plan in place in future to make sure they keep a stable offensive line in front of Josh. But overall, yeah, I think this offense is going to be, once again, a top 10 offense. It's going to be probably a top 5 offense. What you're looking out of this offense, if they can take the next step, is maybe getting more of a consistent rushing attack from Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, because I believe if they can at least get somewhat of a more consistent performance out of those two, I think that will open up even things more for their passing game, because then teams will actually have to not fall for the play action, but they can run more play action, and the defense will have to be more disciplined for it if Moss and Devin Singletary are actually carving up defenses on the first 2 downs. So that's where they can maybe take the next step in their offense. But other than that, it should be like another top 5, top 10 offense a year. They can keep up with any of the best offenses in the league, including the Chiefs. And as long as Josh Allen and them are not turning over the ball, they're going to be, once again, a very strong offense that can put up a lot of points. I'm going to go ahead and keep it moving, though, to the defense. Again, these are the projected starters pulled from the Prospect Encyclopedia. And I did forget to mention earlier, and most people probably know if you watched all my videos, but if you're seeing any stars next to these names on the projected starters or on the notable backups, that means they're inside the Prospect Encyclopedia. In order to make the Bills top 22 list, you have to be from the last 3 NFL draft classes. You have to have less than 12 regular season starts. So these are guys that are, range from anywhere from core special team guys all the way up to potential superstars. And that's one thing I forgot to mention too about that. That's why you can kind of notice how well built this Buffalo Bills team is because out of the offense and defense, I only have one Prospect Encyclopedia player in the projected starters, which is Gabriel Davis. Other than that, all their Prospect Encyclopedia guys are on the bench as notable backups. That's a good thing. That means they have very good quality depth on this team to go behind all those veterans that are on the starting lineup. So you like that they should be able to survive the 17-game schedule in case injuries were to pop up. But yeah, let me just keep on going into this defense then. Let's start with the defensive front. Last year, their defensive front was kind of a detriment to the team. They were getting carved up on the ground. They could not get any consistent pressure with the older veterans that they have in the lineup. And what that did is that caused them to go spend their first 2 picks on Gregory Rousseau and Boogie Basham Jr., which will help out that group. It showed up in that AFC Championship game when they could get no pressure on Patrick Mahomes. So that's when they knew that they had to add more talent to the edge rusher group and the defensive front. But yeah, I think they got a good set of veterans that are starting right now that I have projected as starters between Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison. they are good at what they do, but they're at that age where their play hasn't been consistent. So that's why you want to maybe have some more young guys to work in. Vernon Butler and Star Lutuelele will work in as the D tackles, but the guy I really like is Ed Oliver. He's entering year 3. I think he's shown some good things over the last 2 years, but you just want to see him put it all together and be a dominant force in the middle of the defense and disrupt pockets from the middle, and that will help out guys on the edge to come in. So I like what he can bring this year, especially with the additions of Rousseau. Rousseau can be versatile to work in the inside or on the outside. He's got great length. We're seeing him show up in the preseason, so I think he's going to be an immediate contributor. They also got AJ Epinesa from last year's draft, and like I mentioned, Boogie Basham Jr. So those 3 guys are going to work themselves in the rotation. So what's great about this Bills defensive front this year is they can just keep it coming. Replace, keep them fresh, keep them fresh. That's a brilliant idea what they can do. So as long as everybody can stay healthy on that defensive front, I like their ability to create pressure this year. And then their linebacker group it's right now a very solid group. Matt Milano is one of the more underrated linebackers in the league. He's really solid in coverage. AJ Klein is just a veteran linebacker. He's not going to bring much, but he's going to bring the smarts, the instincts, the experience. So he's in a better position to make a play. But the guy I'm watching is Tremaine Edmonds. I think he's showed some steady growth ever since he's entered the league. And I think he's set to have that next step in his career. And if he can take that next step and deliver on his first round talent, I mean, this can be a pretty good linebacker group, and I think him and Milano can form one of the top linebacker tandems in the league. So you like that they can take advantage of the new defensive front too and be able to fly over the field, be sent on blitz packages, and there's ways that you can get creative with them. So I definitely like this front 7 of the Bills. Now, taking a look at their secondary, it's a pretty strong secondary outside of one weak spot at the corner group opposite of Tre'Davious White. Now, speaking of Tre'Davious White, he's actually tied for the 4th most interceptions since 2018. He has 11. He's a top 10 NFL cornerback. He's one of the best ones in the league. You can count on him week in and week out that he's going to do everything he can in coverage, and he's going to be a leader of the defense. Now, Teron Johnson, he's their nickel cornerback. I talked him up earlier. I thought he showed promising growth at the end of the year. You just want to see that carry into this season, and you like his ability to work inside the slot and cover guys. Now, Levi Wallace is their current starter. They might be working a Rashad Wildgoose, maybe even a Dane Jackson. They're just looking for quality play out of Levi. And the thing, too, out of that position, I actually mentioned on the Bills podcast I was on last night. That will be coming out here today. With them investing what they did in the defensive front, as long as those guys are getting consistent pressure, quick pressure on the quarterback, that can make up for maybe the lack of quality cornerback play opposite of Tre'Davious White. Plus, they can, with how good Tre'Davious is, they can shift more coverage from a Micah Hyde over towards that side of the field too, to help out Levi on the back end of the defense. And speaking of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, you can argue that they're the best safety tandem in the league. I can understand that argument. They both have a unique skill set that complement each other. Micah's a guy that is better in coverage. Jordan's that guy that will come up inside the box. He'll come up and fill up in gaps and be a benefit against the run, and that shows he actually has the 9th most solo tackles since 2018 at 235. So I think they got a very solid defense this year, because the first few years in Sean McDermott, it was the defense that was carrying them. The offense was the detriment. Last year, the offense carried them and the defense was a detriment. So this year, you just need that offense to keep on doing what it was last year. They retooled this defense with all the additions of those young guys on the defensive front. So if that all can come together and just be a solid defense, I mean, I think they should at least be able to be a top 15 defense with what they have. I believe they have playmakers on all 3 levels of the football. As long as the young guys deliver up front and Tremaine Edmonds takes that next step, they would have playmakers on all 3 levels of the ball, and this could be a good defense. So, man, this to me, if Sean McDermott can get the best out of it, I really like what this defense can bring for their offense. Especially if the offense is putting up a lot of points, they can get out to an early 2 touchdown lead. Well, that defensive front is to be able to pin their ears back and just get after the quarterback. But yeah, overall though, for this Bills team, I have high expectations for them because I think to me, I mean, I'm doing my Chiefs preview tomorrow, but to me, the Bills, they might have the deepest roster in the AFC. I like what they have at the top of the depth chart. I like what they have behind most position groups. There are some weak position groups you can point out. Maybe the tight end group, maybe the running back group, and maybe the backups in the cornerback group. But other than that, I like what they have on their offense. It should be once again a top 10 offense, if not a top 5 offense this year. I expect them to be explosive throughout the year, and I think that defense is going to be improved with the additions of Gregory Rousseau and Boogie Basham Jr., and I think AJ Epinesa is going to take the next step. I think Tremaine Edmonds is going to have a strong year, and they have one of the better secondaries in the league. This team is a Super Bowl or bust team to me. I think they have what it takes to actually beat the Chiefs this year. And what their main goal needs to be is locking up that #1 seed. So not only they get the bye, but everybody has to go up to New York in that cold weather in January. And they can control their fate to get to the Super Bowl. That's where I'm at with the Bills. It's Super Bowl or bust, and I think they can get it done because I think they have a heck of a quarterback in Josh Allen. They have playmakers in their wide receiver room. I think this defense is going to be solid, and they have a great leader in Sean McDermott. But yeah, that's the episode today. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, if you like what I had to say today, please hit that like button. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. I was looking at my numbers last night. I saw I have 90% of my views are from unsubscribers. So can you guys subscribe and keep up with the latest content I got pushing? I'm keeping an eye on you, and I have noticed too. I got a lot of people are non-Americans watching my channel too, so that's really cool. I like that this game is getting international. I love if the more football being played throughout the world, that's going to create more opportunities for people in this game. So yeah, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I already gave it away, but the next team I am doing is the Kansas City Chiefs. I will be doing that tomorrow. One last plug, the Prospect Encyclopedia I mentioned earlier. That is available. You can go order it at prospectencyclopedia.com. You can get it for $15. Basically, you're going to get 700 plus scouting reports in that book. It's for all 32 teams. Each team has a top 22 player list. As I mentioned earlier, to make that player list, you have to be from the last 3 draft classes. You have to have less than 12 regular season starts. So these are underlying players that you can learn about and be the smartest guy when it comes to game day. So whenever, maybe a guy like, I don't know, Dane Jackson makes a tackle for the Bills or makes an interception, you already know everything about Dane, and maybe your buddy that's not a casual Bills fan doesn't know much about him, and you can explain to him who Dane is. Here's the great thing too: if you're a Bills fan and you don't care about the other 31 teams, you can order the Bills section that I wrote for only $1 and check it out. The Bucks section that I also wrote, that's download for free. So you can go check out the Bucks section, take a look at it, see if it impresses you, and then if not, go order the Bills section. If not, you can just, and as I always say, why order the Bills section for $1 when you get all 32 teams for $15? So it's a great way to support me, guys, and all the other writers and what we're doing. Other than that, again, thank you for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you guys when I do this Chiefs video tomorrow.